You have reached the offices of the Solid Signal Podcast. We're not here right now, just kidding. Seriously, this is the Solid Signal Podcast, and the week is August 6, 2018. And this week we're going to be talking about cell boosters for business. Chances are you have really bad cell service in your business. Why? Because everybody does. Because businesses and commercial buildings just aren't designed to allow cell service in, whether it's overly efficient windows or stucco or metal studs. Chances are you've got fewer bars when you're working than ever. And this is not a new problem. It's been there ever since businesses have been in business. As a matter of fact, I want to share an interesting story with you. About 25 years ago, I was working for what was then a resort hotel in an extremely remote location. This was in the early days of cell service, and let me tell you, there really wasn't any cell service at that location. And guests really wanted it. This was an expensive place, and people had expensive phones. All cell phones were expensive back then. And so I worked very closely with a company that later became part of AT&T to propose a cell site be added to that building. The cell site would have sat on the roof of the building, and at that time, after a lot of work, I was told by the general manager of that hotel, there will never be a cell phone tower on this building. People do not come here to talk on the phone. Do not even bother. I do not know why you wasted your time. Interesting, of course, because naturally, that person was very, very misguided. I will say that it was about maybe 6 months ago or so. I happened to find myself at that exact same resort hotel. And guess what? There's a cell tower on the roof. But moral of the story is that way back then, that company was willing to that cell company was willing to do all the work and spend all the money to put a cell tower on a commercial building. That was actually very common until about 7 to 10 years ago. It was during the so-called Great Recession that stopped happening. And why? Because, well, honestly, it makes sense. Cell towers used to go on buildings and cellular systems used to go out throughout buildings because cell companies wanted to encourage people to use cell phones. Today, of course, nobody seems to need any encouragement to do that. We are on our cell phones way too much. And yet, business owners still think that somehow the cell company must or has a responsibility to add the hardware it takes to improve cell service at work. I kind of get it. I mean, you ask the electric company to run electrical into your building. On the other hand, you don't ask them to do all the interior wiring. You ask the cable company to bring cable into your building, and maybe they do some of the interior wiring, but if you want something special, then you do have to pay for it. The point is that the tide has turned, and it's now really firmly in the hands of business owners and building owners to make sure that businesses get good cell service. And they really should. They really need to, because the truth is that this is not something that is optional anymore. This isn't something that we should be talking about, well, maybe we kind of need. This is something that realistically every person in every business needs. And it's time that we acknowledge that. It's time that business owners and building owners step up and put commercial quality antenna systems, they call them DAS, distributed antenna systems, into buildings to try to make sure that cell service is as good as it can be. It's kind of ridiculous to think that somebody else is going to have to take responsibility for that. Every business has phone of some sort, every business has internet, and every business has electricity that they pay for. This is something that every business should be taking the initiative of doing, because we do more and more business on cell phones these days. Customers demand it, employees demand it, everybody needs it. If you happen to be in the market for that sort of thing, I would encourage you, of course, to go to solidsignal.com and look for a cell booster system that works for you. We happen to have the ones that will go all the way up to 60,000 square feet, believe it or not. But if you want a custom design system, the good news is, of course, that we'll do that for you for free and get you a parts list of everything you need, help you get hooked up with an installer, get everything going for you. That's a service that we do provide. Cell phone companies probably could provide it too, but they don't. And it will put you one more step on the road to making sure that you have the great cell phone service that you deserve.